On Thursday, October 24, 1929, collective insanity put in an appearance on the New York Stock Exchange. In just a few hours, 30 million stocks were suddenly dumped on the market by shareholders, who didn't even know at what price they sold their shares. Wall Street crashed. In the future, we will call this day Black Thursday. But people at the time didn't know that after this day, they would start the Great Depression. So, what exactly caused the stock market crash on this day? Let's start from 1920. In 1920, when the Europe was still recovering after the First World War, the image conveyed by the United States was of a population living in the best possible society. The industrial growth of man's economic power had never been so strong before. Suddenly, most American families owned automobiles, only 10 years before they didn't. They call this age its Roaring Twenties. And they start to develop credit. Consumer culture blossom. Instead, credit buying blossom in America. It's the age of flopper of jazz. It's also a period of enormous excitement about the stock market, where all kinds of ordinary people, not just the stock market professional, would always participate in the Wall Street. The ordinary folk began to see the Wall Street as a place to play, to grow rich quickly, a place that was largely risk-free. They believed that the prosperity of stock market can last long and everyone can get rich. Americans discovered a passion for stock exchange doubling. In 5 years, stock market price were multiplied by 4. Such a rate seemed incomprehensibly enormous in view of the actual economic situation.
In 1928, Charles Mary's firm warned the market by recommending not to buy on credit. At the beginning of 1929, the population decided to continue credit and the country's economy began to run out of steam, especially in the automobile sector. Industrial production fell by 7% in the first half of the year because all the capital was absorbed in stock market speculation. Nevertheless, the stock market shares rose by more than 100% in the same period, and the stock market price started to stagnate. Due to the situation, nobody wants to buy shares anymore because they will not bring any added value. Thursday, October 24th, called Black Thursday, is the first day of total panic. No one is buying shares and the big traders want to sell all their actions. The stock market price then collapsed by 22% at noon. The panic spread, and in order to limit the collapse of the economy, the banks decide to buy back most of the shares to raise the price of the stock exchange. Thanks to the banks, the fall at the end of the day was only 2%. On Monday, 28th, investors sell their remaining shares to limit their losses, which caused a further collapse of 13% and 12% the next day.
The Great Depression of 1929 devastated the United States economy. Half of our banks failed. Unemployment rose to 25% and homelessness increased. Housing prices plummeted 30%. International trade collapsed by 65% and the prices fell 10% per year. It took 25 years for the stock market to recover. During the first 5 years of the Depression, the economy shrank 50%. In 1929, economic output was $105 billion, as measured by gross domestic product. It's the equivalent of $1 trillion today. The depression affected politics by shaking confidence in unfettered capitalism. That type of laissez-faire economics is what President Herbert Hoover advocated, and it had failed. The Dust Bowl drought destroyed farming in the Midwest. It lasted 10 years, too long for most farmers to hold out. To make things worse, prices for agricultural products dropped to their lowest level since the Civil War. The depression was so severe and lasted so long that many people thought it was the end of the American dream. Instead, it changed that dream to include a right to material benefits. The American dream, as envisioned by the founding fathers, guaranteed the right to pursue one's own vision of happiness. As a result, people voted for Franklin Roosevelt. His Keynesian economics promised that government spending would end the depression. The New Deal worked. In 1934, the economy grew 10% and the unemployment declined. And for long-term impact, the success of New Deal made Americans expect that the government would save them from any economic crisis. During the Great Depression, people relied on themselves and each other to pull through. The New Deal signaled that they could rely on the federal government instead.
The aftermath of the crisis. This crisis propelled Adolf Hitler into power, paving the way for the Second World War. The Great Depression, also known as the economic crisis of the 30s, is the period in world history from the 1929 crash in the United States of the Second World War. The conflagration hit Europe hard, with American banks demanding immediate repayment of loans for post-war reconstruction. Only France seems to be spared at first, but this will not last, and the French economy will be one of the last to restart. Just before the Second World War, two figures are enough to measure the importance of this global depression. American industrial production fell from half 1929 to 1932, and the employment rate fell from 3.1% to 24%. To conclude, if the current crisis presents some symptoms similar to those of the crisis of 29, the bodies created since then, such as the central banks, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, are trying to correct the drift.